Hi, everyone. My name is Hannah Barrett, and I am going to walk you through my prompt number two. So, the first question was, what role does reflection play in your own instructional practice? So, I read Reflective Practices, a Means to Teacher Development, and I considered how reflection informs my own teaching. Reflection plays a crucial role in my instructional practice because it allows me to analyze what worked and what did not work in my classroom. By reflecting on lessons, student engagement, and learning outcomes, I'm able to adjust instructional strategies to better meet the needs of all learners. Reflection also helps me recognize patterns in my teaching, such as which instructional approaches consistently engage students and which content areas may need a little bit more scaffolding. How do you utilize peer experts in becoming a better teacher? Peer experts have been essential in my growth as a teacher, collaborating with colleagues through co teaching, observation, and PLCs provides me with feedback, new strategies, and different perspectives that I might not consider when I'm doing them alone. I've found that discussing lesson plans and student responses with other teachers allows me to refine my instructional approach and adopt best practices more effectively. In what capacity does your prior knowledge and student experience influence your own growth as a teacher? My prior knowledge and student experience strongly influences my growth as a teacher. Having experience with young learners allows me to anticipate common misconceptions, differentiate lessons effectively, and create developmentally appropriate instruction. I often draw from prior lessons that were successful or challenging and use those experiences to guide future planning. Identify a lesson or unit you developed as an undergraduate or in your early courses in graduate school. So, the title of my lesson is Sorting Animals by Traits. So, the goals of this lesson, students will be able to classify animals by observable traits. Students will practice using academic vocabulary to describe characteristics of animals, and students will work collaboratively to compare and discuss their findings. And my instructional approaches were explicit instruction, introducing animal traits, cooperative group work to sort animals in categories, independent practice with worksheets, including creating a bar graph to track findings. So during this lesson, I was moderately successful at addressing all learners. My students who struggled with vocabulary really benefited from having guidance from me and using visual aids. And my advanced learners were not really fully challenged all the way like I would have liked them to be. Some strategies that worked was the cooperative group work. I let students work together on their sorting, and that was really beneficial for them because they were able to talk and collaborate and bounce ideas off of each other. Strategies that were less effective. The worksheets that I chose were too easy for my advanced learners, and my transition times between my activities could have went a little smoother. They were a little chaotic and kind of took a long time to move to the next activity. Integration across content areas was present, but it was limited. Math skills like counting and graphing were included in my lesson, but I think I could have done some more explicit integration and instruction that really could have strengthened the student learning. So, for my revised lesson, the goals of my students were to be that students will classify animals based on their observable traits, which was a science standard. Students will count and graph the number of animals in each category, which is the math standard. Students will use new vocabulary words to describe animals, which is language arts standard. And students will collaborate to explain their reasoning to peers, and that just helps with their social skills. My instructional approaches are explicit instruction. I introduce animal traits and counting skills very explicitly, whereas the first go around, I just kind of touched on them and just mentioned them, and it was clear that the students were not understanding. This go around, I added a read aloud. The students engaged with a story about baby animals. And during that time, I modeled vocabulary and comprehension, and the students were really engaged in that because they really liked learning about the baby wolf. Then we use inquiry based learning. Students were able to investigate little animal figures. And so they actually sorted the actual animal, little play animal figures into the groups. So they actually were able to see like a real life model of the animals. And I feel like this helped a lot because they were actually able to see, oh, this animal has feathers or this animal has fur versus just it on a piece of paper. And cooperative learning, I did this in the last lesson, and it worked really well, so I wanted to bring it over to this lesson as well. We did small groups, where the groups work together to sort their animals and to create their graphs. For some differentiation strategies, my emerging learners, they sorted their animals into 3 different categories. They used some picture cards and cues, and they got a lot of support from me. My learners that are on level, they completed the sorting and the counting and the graphing, pretty much independently. They just needed a little bit of help, but they really did it mostly by themselves. And my advanced learners, they sorted their animals into 5 different categories, and they had to compare the traits across the categories. We also discussed the habitats that the animals might live in, and we made predictions about other animals and where we thought that they might fall into. For assessments and monitoring, I did a lot of observations during group work. I have a clipboard that has all of my G Kids um, standards on them that have to be assessed throughout the whole year. And so this is a really easy way for me just to check off if they met that GKID standard. I did a lot of formative checks, like just some simple thumbs up, thumbs down. I checked for comprehension when we were doing the read aloud and questioning. The students created their bar graphs, and I used that as a piece of evidence. And I use a lot of positive reinforcement and clear group norms to ensure engagement in appropriate behavior. And if I notice that those behaviors were just not acceptable, we would pause and reflect, and then we would move on. So, my reflection on my revised lesson was that this lesson was much more successful with integrating all of my subject areas. Students were much more engaged with hands on sorting and graphing and discussions. And so that really increased participation compared to my original lesson. For culture diversity and community engagement, I included diverse animal examples from different continents and habitats, which was kind of prompted students to discuss where the animals live in relation to their own community. This encouraged students to make connections to their own experiences. My student engagement was definitely higher in the revised lesson. Students were actively asking questions, they participated in their groups, and they shared their observations. They really enjoyed sorting the animal figures this time. I feel like that was definitely a game changer, allowing them to actually have those physical objects. And my changes in learning, student work indicated stronger understanding of both science and math concepts. My students who struggled with vocabulary benefited from modeling and peer support, and my advanced learners were challenged through the discussion about habitats and predictions. Whereas the first go round, I felt like they were not very challenged at all, and they were kind of bored. To continue my reflection, some student example reflections. One of my struggling learners, they needed a repeated vocabulary support. So in the future, I might provide a more in-depth word bank and maybe some visual cue cards. My advanced learners, they finished their task very quickly and needed enrichment. Um, so for the future, I might add on an extension activity where they might categorize more complex traits, or maybe they can create their own animal classification chart and they can share it with their peers. For integration and inclusivity, future lessons could include more culturally diverse examples of animals and habitats to connect learning to students' lives, and incorporating student choice in data, such as letting them maybe choose a different type of graph, maybe do a pictograph or a chart, might increase engagement, and it would accommodate multiple learning styles as well. So, to wrap up my reflection of the overall program, the courses in my master's program helped me develop reflective practices, deepen my PCK, and expand my repertoire of instructional strategies. Through these courses, I gained confidence in integrating multiple content areas, differentiating for diverse learners, and utilizing peer feedback to refine my lessons. Some things that strengthened my teaching were explicit instruction on differentiation and assessment strategies, opportunities to collaborate with peers and analyze student work samples, exposed to research based instructional approaches such as inquiry, cooperative learning, and read aloud strategies. Some things that I think that might have could been improved were more guided practice with technology integration to enhance learning, additional strategies for culturally responsive teaching beyond lesson content, and more opportunities to observe and practice integrating multiple content areas in real classroom settings. Overall, I really enjoyed my time during the master's program, and I really learned so much. And I've already been putting so many of those practices into use into my classroom, and I'm just really grateful and thankful for the experience. So, thank you so much. And I almost forgot the last page is my references, which is the article that I read. Thank you.